Good morning. There's no shortage of opinions and thoughts on this idea of generative AI. I actually think, you remember when you think back at different NAB shows and you remember there was like a vibe of certain years, like remember the drone year? Do you remember that? And it was just like, it sounded like a beehive in the central hall, right? There was the first year where all of a sudden the camera manufacturing arms race took off and everybody was making cameras, and there's these different years and patterns. And I think this year we're going to look back on 2024 and say that, oh boy, we're going to go back on 2024 and we're going to say this was the AI year, because it may not actually become something that we're going to be worried about as much as people are today. And that's what we're going to talk about today. This difference between generative AI and utilitarian AI. And that's going to be an interesting thing, because I think we're going to see a fork in the road in what is going to be the AI directions. And we're going to see different companies, different opportunities, different manufacturers, different creative people sort of start to pick lanes. Because I think right now it's like a runway where it's so wide that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, but it's going to start to narrow like bowling lanes. It's going to get narrower. And I think that's what we need as manufacturers, as users, as creatives. So before we jump into that, a little bit about me. I'll start with pictures of me from like 100 years ago. I just loved getting involved in digital technologies. And at 18 years old, I got my first job at a PBS station in Carbondale, Illinois. And on the bottom right, that's me with my Grass Valley 200-2 ME switcher, and started learning that world. And I just got addicted to work at 18 years old and haven't stopped since. And I've always been trying to pioneer these technologies. I've been really thankful over the years to be able to get to be a part of more than 150 major motion pictures, and taking that technology and those ideas and those concepts and the tool and start to build it for the highest end market. And I love doing that. I've been able to be noted as a strong innovator. I had the opportunity to be a part of the Panavision world and start building cameras and working in the optics and acquisition space, and then started working with camera to cloud technology, which in the 2030s, we won't have cards in any of these cameras that you're shooting with. They'll all be able to cache locally, and they'll just transmit to the cloud in the background, much like your phone. The easiest way to get media off your phone is the cloud, right? It's hard to plug a phone in. And the same thing will eventually happen to the cinema space. But then recently I started my third startup with my brother, and we call it Strata. And we love telling stories. And our storytelling technique we put online. We want people to know, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a creative, if you're just into business and art and AI and workflow, we like to tell all those stories. And so it's a place for people to learn and explore and watch us succeed and fail and fall and cry and all that stuff captured on YouTube. I've never done YouTube before. It's still kind of scary for me to do this, but we love telling the story and being transparent. But the reason, again, we're here today is to start to build lanes for AI, so we can start to get ourselves in the right space and figure out what that's going to mean. And we're going to break it down to 3 parts. And a lot of people start asking, I think the first question most people are asking with AI is, does it look good enough? How real does it look? How easy is it to use? I don't think that's the first question. I actually think we skipped the most important first question, which is it viable as a business? And I didn't know everybody was asking that question because we got so caught up in how good it looked that it was going to eliminate job. But even if, just for a second, if AI was good enough to eliminate everybody's job, if it isn't viable as a business, it doesn't matter if it is good enough. So let's back up and explore some of the business viability. At first, what we can see is people, especially in the high-end entertainment space. I live and work in Hollywood, but these questions is this going to be transforming the industry? It's more of a disruption right now. And I think that's an interesting concept. You might have heard of a trailer that Marvel did that they used AI on the trailer. It created a lot of upset with that process, and people were really concerned. Even though everybody maintained their roles in the process, they just used AI as a new tool, but it got a lot of press. Of course, IATSE and SAG-AFTRA really concerned about the impacts of AI on their business, notably so. But there's a lot of concerns about that and people talking a lot about that. And then you might have heard about a month ago when Sora was announced, Tyler Perry was about to break ground on several new stages in his Atlanta kingdom. And he pulled that back and said maybe Sora could eliminate the need to even build these stages. I thought that was a little far-fetched, a little fast, a little presumptuous, but that's what happened. So when we start looking at headlines like this, and this is just a snapshot of all the headlines that exist here, when we look at these headlines, wow, that's really cool. But when we look at these headlines, we can think about how this is actually going to impact our business and say, okay, then maybe AI's got the upper hand. It's starting to really disrupt where we're going. But there's another side of this. See, there are some really serious problems because most of the AI we just talked about is generative forms of AI. And here's the first problem. Here's a company called Stability. You think you're paying too much for your internet bill? Stability's AI's internet bill is $99 million. And this article is only about 14 days old, where Stability, which they make a product called Stable Diffusion. It's a really cool product and allows you to make and create generative AI images, but you can hold things and save them so that you can keep things that you want to keep in the image and then only change other things. That's why they call it Stable Diffusion. So the transformers in it are allowed to save things and move only parts of the image. But the problem is with a $99 million internet bill for AWS and only $11 million in revenue, the delta between that is putting them in a really tough bind. So here's a very powerful, very, very elite generative AI model that's not really doing that well. OpenAI, the fastest growing company in the world, the fastest, broken every record of how fast you can build a company. But OpenAI about 3 months ago started a new way to take their generative transformers and turn them into what they call GPT. And the idea was to build a marketplace so manufacturers could start building little models and put them on the marketplace. But the problem is the developers who started to try to use it said they're having trouble finding customers. They're having trouble finding a way to monetize it. My guess is many of you probably never even heard of GPTs. And if you do, are you even using them? And if you are using them, are you even aware? Those are discovery problems. And you can't have a marketplace if you're not aware that you're in the marketplace. So they've got some problems there. Even though OpenAI is a very large juggernaut, it doesn't mean that the application here is viable. And then here's a third one. This is a company called Inflection. They make a really cool tool that is an automatic AI assistant for all of consumers. Their vision, their mission was to give everyone in the world their own assistant. And the challenge with them, they were valued at $4 billion, but they reportedly recently, they only have a few million people go to the website in 2024. So there's a major delta between the vision, the mission, the potential, and the actuality. And so a great writer, Alistair here says from Business Insider, either these products are not catching on at the scale required for a successful consumer business, or there isn't a clear way for the services to generate significant revenue and profit. Business viability must be the paramount foundation of any trend that moves into a standard. If it doesn't happen the right way, things don't take off, even if they're good. We all know the stories of startups that go early, they get in there early, Facebook, MySpace, or BlackBerry, iPhone. And if the business viability isn't quite there, even a good product might not make it. First to market doesn't mean it's always successful. And this is an interesting warning. Now, there's actually a little bit of an excuse here, because we can't just say everything is a problem with the actual technology, because there's another macroeconomic problem, and it's actually coined in a phenomenon called ZIRP. The zero interest rate phenomenon. See, when money was cheap and available, then the opinion and attitude of investments is go out, try it, experiment, break things, go do all that stuff, grow the business, discover what's out there. That's what happens in a ZIRP phenomenon. These companies did exactly that. All the companies I mentioned have been doing this for many, many years. Most people only heard of ChatGPT in the last 24 months, maybe only the last 12 months, but they've been building this for 7 or 8 years. And that's when ZIRP was in their favor. But what happened is that all of a sudden, the money started to change. The interest rates went up. Money got expensive and less available. And when that happens, the zero interest rate phenomenon changes the attitude from go out, grow, and experiment and explore to can you monetize? Let's see revenue. Let's see exits, right? And that is really bad for ideas and innovation when you're being driven by the profit center. So it's not all the Gen AI's approach as a problem. Part of it is bad luck. Thomas Jefferson, one of my favorite quotes, he says that I'm a big believer in luck. The harder I work, the more of it I have. And I believe in that. A lot of people say, I don't believe in luck. You make your own luck. You know, there's no such thing as luck. That's crap. You absolutely can get lucky. But if you work harder, luck favors the prepared. And so what happens right now is that this is just a massive stroke of bad luck. And here's why. LLMs, the models that actually have to do this, cost an insane amount of money. Remember, Stability AI is spending $99 million a year just to train their models, not to deploy it, not to compute for all of the users, just to keep the model going. That's a big problem. The companies that need to do this have to raise the most money in the world. More money is being poured into these Gen AI tools than any other single startup type of company. It's a massive amount of money to be able to do that. And then when you couple the expense of doing it and the money that's required, then you put in the ZERP and you realize that when these companies need time to find product market fit, they are not given that time. That time is being removed from them because the zero interest rate phenomenon is bad luck for the timing that they need to pivot and change and shapeshift and learn from all of us so that we can try it. You can't try a chat once or even for a couple of months and to give feedback, here's how it should work. You need to really get in that, and we need millions of people to use it so we can feed that information back. And that's one of the reasons we come to NAB every year, because we see the changes nuanced every single year and you see the trends move. But the manufacturers and the consumers and the buyers have to work together to do that. If we can't have a relationship and you have to expressly compute all that stuff without the time to find and establish product market fit, the whole thing can topple down. So I think this shows a new Gen AI pattern emerging. Is there a problem with generative AI in totality, or speaking of business viability, is the problem in the category that AI is applied? I think it's the latter. So let's think about the category, and the category that we are all in is creative. So what can we do about the best way to apply creative? And there's an interesting Creator Now survey, and this is what the survey looked like. They started surveying a whole bunch of creatives, and what they did is they determined how many people are using AI, and if they are, where are they deploying it? Right? And that goes back to business viability. What we learned in that is the number one thing people wanted to use AI for was to increase speed. That's really interesting because a lot of people might think it is to lower costs, but that was the least important thing, was not to save money, but to save time. I think that's pretty profound. Then you can see here how filling skills gaps and better quality and cost reduction is left. This is a really interesting approach to figuring out where the AI is being used. And this might track with you. If you're using AI, see if this actually falls in line with what you're thinking, more or less. It definitely does for myself and my team. But I want to focus in on this one element that is highlighted here, filling skills gaps. This is where I think if I were building a business, or if I run a business, or if I'm building a technology company, or I want to provide more service for my customers, I think the sweet spot here is filling skills gaps. And I think this is going to be, right now it's kind of in the second spot, but I think this can be the top spot for valuing AI, and it can be the fastest to grow. And here's why. I've come up with this concept I call the skills gap principle. And if you want to know how do I use AI, some of you use it a little bit, some of you use it a lot, some of you don't use it at all. Here's where I think AI is going to really become super valuable to everyone. What we can do is we can plot this course right here between elements that you consider close to your skills and things that are far away. So whatever you're doing, there's something that you're really good at and something you're not very good at, right? If you're a colorist, you're probably not a sound mixer. If you're a cinematographer, you're probably not a colorist, right? If you're a director, you might not be a producer or a sound mixer, something like that. We all have different jobs. So the other category, however, is things that you assign high value to versus things that you assign low value to. Because not everything in the workflow to you is as important, right? Not everything is equally important. There's high and low. So what the skills gap principle does is it allows each individual person to put on a map where AI works. So let's fill it out for a subject. So if something is very close proximity to you, you know this stuff, and you assign a high value to it, is that a great place for AI? No, it is not. That's the time that you spend to learn it. This is your vocation, right? if something is powerful to you and you know it, you're going to do it. That's why you're born. That's why you get up in the morning. It's like, I love doing this. This is why cinematographers and photographers are so afraid of Gen AI, because they're like, I have a lot of proximity to making images and I put a high value on it. I don't want AI anywhere near this zone. Do you follow me? Does that make sense? So then we can look at, well, what about a skill you don't have, but you have high value? Let's say you're a director and you're not good at sound mixing, but you obviously want a good sound mix. What are you going to do? You're going to hire an expert to do it. That's also not a great place for AI, because the value of it's so high. You want the control. You want the ability to have relationships and figure out what's happening. So this is not a great space for AI. Even though you're not doing it, you'll find a friend. You'll hire someone better than you, and you can work together to get it done. But what about something that's far away from your skills knowledge, and you still put a low value on it? Is that good for AI? A little bit. See, this is where AI starts to creep in, because if you don't know much about it and it's low value, you're not going to be able to get the AI to actually do a very good job, because you don't know that space. If you know nothing of color and you don't put a high value on it, when you apply AI to it, you're kind of like, I guess that looks okay, right? Because you're not really that confident. You don't know it as well. But that obviously shows us where the biggest impact for AI is. The largest impacts is things that are close to you, but low value. If it's really something you know, you're a subject matter expert about color, but you don't want to put a low value on it, that's where AI can work the best. Think about this from a manufacturer's perspective. Find the people that value certain tasks that are close to them, but they don't have the time to do it. That's what low value is. Like, I don't have the time. I don't want to be bothered by doing this thing, but it's really important. It needs to get done. That means you're the best person to get it done automatically. And that's a new way to think about this. And so the skills gap principle leads us to what I think that category on the bottom, and certainly the bottom left, is what I call AI as a utility. See, when we think about AI, we are so enamored by the headlines and the money being spent and the good results that can get there. But I actually think the solution to this in our industry, what we need, is the mundane. Celebrate the boring. The boring parts of AI are actually going to be the parts that are the most lucrative for manufacturers, the most applicable for users. The more boring it is, first of all, you eliminate the concept of picketing, because people aren't going to pick it. Here's a really good example. If we think about AI models, here is a bunch of AI models. These are all different tasks. There's several in here. Some of these are for transcription, lip reanimation. Some of these do generative computations for beauty work and like polishing, sort of like Photoshop, or tracking, or there's another one there for color correction, and even coding AI is in there. If we take these are all for different people. They're all for different people. Here's a really interesting way. If we plot these on a scale, and on this spectrum, we have things that gravitate towards a utility or things that gravitate towards creative. This is really interesting. Some people are going to plot some of these tasks on a more creative end of the spectrum, like AI color correction or AI pimple removal or makeup changing. That's going to say to some people, it's more creative. Other people are going to say, the one on the far left there is Copilot. And Copilot is really great actually in the coding space. It doesn't actually write code for you. You give it the first prompts of what you want to do, and it fills in the rest. It doesn't know what you're going to do. You don't say, make an app that does X, Y, Z. You have to know a little bit, but it fills in the gap. And that's it's a very utilitarian form of AI that's speeding things up. And engineers who simply don't have the time to do certain layers of code, but they know the space really well, you see, that's where the AI is the most helpful, because they can drive it to do the right thing because they're subject matter experts, but they don't have to spend the time to laboriously do it all. That's the difference. Now, here's the problem with this scale. All of these are potentially viable businesses. I'm not trying to paint a spectrum here that I'm guessing who's going to be successful and unsuccessful. But here's what I can say with pretty solid certainty. We can also map another layer of adoption. And if we think about adoption of utility form, it will absolutely be broadly adopted. It'll be a more broad adoption versus creative stuff that's going to be a lot narrower. So I'm not saying a tool like Evoto, that one on the right, or Color Lab AI, These are viable businesses that will help people, but because they lean creative, adoption will be narrow. Here's a really good example. What you need to do is find AI that is unilaterally agreed to be mundane. When, in fact, it's unilaterally agreed to be mundane, one, no one will picket it because nobody misses doing it the old way. And two, you can sell it to a lot of people and it's very, very easily adopted at scale. The best example of this is Google Maps or Apple Maps. Everyone uses that. It's all AI based. It's been AI based for years, and everybody unilaterally agrees this is better than a paper map that I have to print out and take a felt tip pen and draw the line like Indiana Jones, right? Like that's worse. And so because of that, the adoption of AI as a utility in maps is unilaterally accepted. Nobody is arguing about it, and we don't have to have an argument. Is this ethical, right? It's just like, no, it's saving me time. I need to get somewhere. It's really important to me to get it somewhere, but I don't want to spend any time. That's that bottom left corner. That's where AI serves us the best. Now, someone may say color correction to them might be in that same category, but I'm pretty certain it's fewer people. And the further up the creative end of the spectrum, the more nervous creative people get. And if they get nervous, there's a little bit of fractures in the reliability or the ability for adoption to happen quickly. So that's the trouble with this. So hopefully this makes sense when we're starting to examine this. And I then want to kind of show how I've applied this, because all of these theories and many of the articles that I just shared are only like somewhere between 10 and 21 days old. This stuff is in the last couple of weeks. I was talking with Brian earlier, and I just really don't like to go dig back months and months and months for data. A lot of times I really like when the data is very, really current. And a lot of these articles, when you find out, they're only going to be a few months old, some of them a few weeks old. And I think that's really showing the story that started being painted with all this stuff. So I want to show how I'm going to take this on. So I'm going to switch to the podium mic now. And I want to show a demonstration here of how I'm doing this in our product. Our product is called Strata. And so this is my version of trying to apply the principles of utilitarian AI to eliminate the boring, mundane tasks of post-production workflow so that we can give more time to creative people to do the creative stuff and keep that stuff the same until further notice. So here's how we do that. I am running this in Chrome right now. And in Chrome, I have Strata running. This is strata.tech. This is an app available. The first thing I can see here is I see 18 clips here, right? I see 18 audio assets. And now we have audio, and typically for a lot of people when we shoot, we have separate picture and sound. So I have 18 assets here. And the first thing I'm going to say is I want to transcribe these. So I'll hit transcribe, and it will kick off an AI transcription system that will run about a minute of media. Will transcribe in about 6 seconds. It can also transcribe about 110 languages, and we can translate all of those languages. So we have transcription and translation where detected. Now, if we look here, we see a bunch of A camera clips, and then I see a bunch of B camera clips. If I select all these, we can see there's 57 assets. I'm going to go in here and hit analyze. What this does is it kicks off several AI models that are concatenated together. They're bounded together, and it's starting to look for objects, faces, locations, and even emotions. And now, once we take all these, I'm going to make a brand new bin. This is all cloud-based. I'm going to make a new bin. I'll call this NAB demo. And you can see I just made a new bin there. I'm going to select all these takes, and I'm going to say add them to the NAB demo bin. Once I go into that bin, it's going to look the same for a moment here, where we're going to see all those takes are moved into a bin. This is all cloud again. And now I'm going to click, I want to stack these by time code. And using a combination of AI and automation, which are different things, but when used in combination, we can do some pretty cool gymnastics tricks. What I just did is sunk all of those assets, which normally would take about half a day. But not only have I sunk them, I've actually multicammed them. So if we look at the properties right here, I have the B cam, the audio, and the A cam, and I can play those back, and it will actually play them back in multicam at the same time. You can even see down here, we have a little mini timeline of the video and audio assets. And so now we're watching a multicammed result of the original files. But to take it even further, of course, this isn't just purely about multicamming. That's a nice, boring task that if it goes away, I don't think anyone's going to miss sitting there and syncing sound and multicamming at all. More importantly, we get a transcription of everything that's being said. So I can take this transcription and I could search by the word countryside, and it'll take me right to the part of the script where the actress says the word countryside. And when I hit play, it'll play that back. And she'll speak it in a second. Internet here is a little slow at NAB. We all know that, but we'll give it 1 second, see if I get lucky. Luck favors the prepared, and I don't have a hard line, so it happens to all of us. But we can see right here, I love the city. I lived upstate in the countryside, and so we're able to see all that play back in a little bit better internet situation. I'm just going to hit refresh and give myself one more chance with that because I want to show the next thing. So again, we just use AI to do transcribe and translate, and we can see multicam, and we can convert the languages as it does that. But now remember, we talked about searching, AI searching, and this is the biggest breakthrough because we can search a transcript, but now because of AI, we can also search an image analysis. So if I twirl this down, what you're seeing here is the first timeline of an AI analytics of what's happening in a clip. On the left, I see everything that the AI recognized, what happened, and on the right, I see everything of what the AI recognized where it happened. And so now you're looking at a pattern in which what is happening, where it's happening, and it's actually time code based. So if I search for an action and a director says, where's the shots where she's drinking from the glass? If I search drinking, it will sort all those out and just pull shots where there's drinking. I look at the AI analysis and I see where is drinking right here. And you look at the row and I see no drinking, no drinking, no drink. Oh, there's the drinking. I click right there and we hit play. And if the internet behaves, we'll see a moment as it plays back where we got the drinking. So we're able to find the assets and find the exact moments in which moments take place. And no one has to manually tag anything. No one has to search for it, look for it, wonder where it was. If I want to line up 3 or 4 versions of someone doing an action, that would normally take an editor 6 or 7 minutes to find all those moments and assemble them together. But here, not only can I do it in mere seconds, I don't have to have a nonlinear editor to do it, right? This is something that someone with 10 minutes of experience could figure out because they can know what they're looking for and just search for that task. Here's another example of a lot of media. I have a lot of media in here. And in this media, I can search by sort of a type of shot, like a drawer, something I'm looking for. It will find all the shots with a drawer. And you'll notice here, when we look at this stuff, this is shot by Indiana Underhill. This actually shows a pattern. Do you see the pattern emerging here? You can actually see a lot of times when we actually record in a series. Like they'll try it, close it, try it again, do it again, do it again. You can actually see the pattern. Nothing's happening here. If I go right here, we know the drawer is going to be open because we can see the pattern is changing, right? If we go here, I bet it's closed and we'll see it closed. I'm just going to take a risk here. Well, I'll keep it going. And then you can see it opened again. So you see there's like 4 patterns here of the resets of the result. So even without watching the footage, I can actually sense the direction and the timing in which the footage takes place. So that's really powerful. I could search by objects, like there's a cat in this film. And if I search by cat, it'll actually find the cat. And what's interesting about a shot like this is at the very beginning of the shot, I don't even see a cat. I don't see anything. I'm going to have to switch to my hotspot here. And I know that might screw up the record, but I just want to give myself the hotspot and just see if that helps me at all. Okay, we'll see here. So if we look right here, we see a shot. We don't see, is this going to be any faster? We are able to actually, the point of this is we're able to find a shot where we don't see a cat at all. Before the editor has to sift through and find out what's happening and when it's happening, we're able to see that that's going to happen here. And so if I click right here, there's going to be a cat. As soon as my internet catches up with me, we'll see a cat come down the hallway. I guess you could just trust me. The AI is right. The cat is going to be right there. Even if the internet doesn't give me the results that I'm looking for, it's going to be there. So you can come to our booth in Central Hall and we'll show you a little bit better example of this. But the point is you're able to start searching by all sorts of things like things like knife. I can start finding the knives. It'll pull me there. I can search by fruit. I can search by even an action such as like dancing or smile or happy or sad. And it'll start to do that. Here's all the takes that have the fruit in it or a small object like a ring. It'll find those things. And so you remember today, a director, a writer, a producer, an editor, typically what we have to do is we're sort of slaves to the idea of remembering the scene and take, something happened, or the day it was shot, or, something like that. And so the point here is that we're able to find this stuff much faster and help it along. This also works in nonfiction because in the nonfiction space, we can start searching by the same dimension and the same layer of capturing stuff. So we could search by in a nonfiction space by actions, locations, and things like that. If I search the word lake in a nonfiction space, it will find all the aerials with the lake, even if the beginning of a shot doesn't show a picture of a lake. Here we can see the lake is not visible here. I see a picture of a tree, but if I play back, watch what happens to the blue line. We're going to see it recognizes lake happening right here. And now it sees the lake. So we actually see the portion of the shot where it recognized lake. So even long takes, you can find the things in them, which is great for nonfiction. The point here is that there's a world of mundane tasks. And I got to go back. Going back to handheld to finish this up. Thank you so much. There's a world of mundane tasks, and it's really important that we think as manufacturers, as users, as creatives, as customers and developers, that I think the best place to put yourself to be ready for all this is to look for the stuff that's boring. And it sounds weird because it's countercultural to the story. It's not as exciting as the above the line, the above the fold headline. But I'm convinced that the story that we're going to see emerge and evolve in the AI world is going to be success born in the boring stuff. Think of Google Maps as a really good example of that, just sneaking in and adoption being huge because it's a utility and not a creative result. And it's not doing a job for you, a vocation. Finding a way to your destination is not somebody's job, right? And so a lot of people in the editing room, the producing, the story space, nonfiction, all that stuff, we would much rather be painting and building and writing and editing and directing, and we would less want to be spending time logging and syncing and transferring and transcoding and tagging and translating. Those are the things that are slowing us down. So focus in on that, and that's where I think that the difference between Gen AI and utility AI is the real opportunity for us. We'll see if I'm right. I don't know. The Gen AI companies could take over, and this all could end badly like some people believe, but we have a say in that, and especially in the creative space. We have a say in how this gets adopted. So I welcome all opinions. I certainly love the skeptics that come in and challenge this because nobody actually knows what's going to happen. But I think we all have a hand on the steering wheel. No one's really in charge. There's not one, not even OpenAI with all their might. They're not actually steering everything. We all have a hand on the wheel. So let's all keep our hands on the wheel and kind of pull it together to where we want it to work. But I think a dismissive attitude about like we don't want it or we're going to pick it or shut it down or just we're simply not going to adopt it. I don't think that's how we move in progress in innovation and we lose things. Remember, 40 years ago, Disney sued JVC because when the VHS tape came out, Disney says this will ruin us. Home video will ruin us was the system. And they went to court to stop the innovation of home video because they thought it would destroy their company when in fact it made them what they are today. And so that's where stifling innovation is a bad habit. And there's no room in our industry for stifling innovation, especially what could come of smart people taking ownership of AI opportunities and deploying it for everybody. Thank you so much for the time this morning. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of the show. Hope to see you soon.